So we're going to spend a bit of time now talking about roots and shoots in Canada and how you can take action to make the world a better place right in your home community. We'll start with a quick introduction of some of the amazing work of my teammates at the Jane Goodall Institute of Canada. We'll dive into the Roots and Shoots program and how you can get involved to make a difference. And then I'll introduce you to 8 Fund, which is where youth can access online tools, resources, and funding for their Roots and Shoots projects. A quick note that as you go, or as we go, you'll probably see some amazing photos of Dr. Jane, some of which she'll be interacting with wildlife such as chimpanzees. It's super important to remember that wildlife are best observed from a safe, respectable distance. And as you all learn, explore, and play outdoors, we encourage you to observe wildlife from afar for the safety of both you and the animals themselves. Let's jump in. Awesome. The Jane Goodall Institute of Canada is part of a global community conservation organization that continues the work of the lovely Dr. Jane Goodall, who we just had the pleasure of speaking with. We have global offices all over the world in over 30 countries and programs in more than 60 countries. Our mission is to honor Jane's legacy of hope through action by mobilizing widespread movements addressing the convergence of 3 global crises: climate change, biodiversity loss, and environmental inequity in support of communities in Canada and sub-Saharan Africa. All of our offices are driven by the belief that by protecting chimpanzees and inspiring people to value and protect the natural world we all share, that we improve the lives of all people, animals, and the environment around us. We do some pretty amazing work at the Jane Goodall Institute of Canada. I have an incredible team, and our partners and programs are arguably even cooler. Our first pillar of work is focused on community-centered conservation, which focuses on empowering communities and partnering with them in order to foster conservation efforts through elements such as water sanitation, reforestation, and sustainable agriculture. We also work with our partners to support 2 sanctuaries for orphan chimpanzees, one in the Republic of Congo and another in South Africa. We also love to continue Dr. Jane's work in scientific discovery, which includes researching chimpanzee behavior that is leading the way in conservation science and technological innovation. And lastly, we know that the biggest titans of change for the future are within young people like you all over the world. Our global humanitarian and environmental program, Roots and Shoots, works to educate and empower youth all over the world to lead hands-on projects that help people, animals, and the environment. I was not kidding either. Roots and Shoots is literally all over the world, from coast to coast in Canada, to Australia, China, Taiwan, Chile, Germany, India, Japan, the United Kingdom, the United States, and everywhere in between, over 60 countries. But what is now a giant program started all the way back in 1991 when only 12 Tanzanian high school students that wanted to make a change in their community worked with Jane to do so. And thus the first Roots and Shoots group was born. This year, we're celebrating 30 years of Roots and Shoots, which is hard to believe sometimes. In Canada, over the last 2 years, we've supported over 150 projects through our 8 Fund grants, which were led collectively by over 12,000 youth across Canada and involved an additional 35,000 youth. And it's incredibly easy to participate too. It's only 4 steps and focuses on where you feel like you can make a difference in your own community. Anyone can participate too. We have youth from pre-kindergarten all the way up to 30 years old, and sometimes even older, participating in Roots and Shoots projects. So what does Roots and Shoots look like in Canada? Our team follows something called the One Health approach, which essentially boils down to an understanding that all people, all animals, and the environment are deeply interconnected with one another. And this idea is not a secret either. Many people, especially First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples from coast to coast to coast, have long understood the interconnectedness between all living and non-living beings. This year, we have begun to integrate these diverse perspectives into the core fabric of our programming for all Roots and Shoots projects in order to center and amplify Indigenous perspectives and voices into climate action, as they are the original stewards of these lands. And while the ideas of equity and biodiversity and climate change might seem complex or scary or confusing, you'd be amazed to see that all of our Roots and Shoots projects are already helping all people, animals, and the environment around them in some way, whether the youth leading the projects know it or not. Take, for example, a community sustainable food garden. The food produced helps the people in the community access fresh, healthy, local food. The plants in the garden clean the air and provide us with oxygen, just like the trees do, and help to clean and green our environment. And the garden is also home to many insects like pollinators and other critters and plant species, providing them with nutrients and shelter, which is helping biodiversity and animals. And for anyone who doesn't know, biodiversity is just a fancy science word for the variety of all living things. This just goes to show how interconnected we all are with the world around us and how much we depend on animal biodiversity and a healthy environment to help us, the people, live long, healthy lives. And to speak a little bit more about the interconnectedness between all people, animals, and the environment, here is a quick video from Dr. Jane about how we all depend on one another.
It's been an amazing journey, this life of mine. This planet has filled me with the wonder of all living things, great and small. We cannot ignore this earth that surrounds us, that feeds us, shelters us, replenishes our bodies and our souls, and stretches our imaginations, where animals, plants, air, water, all care for us. We're all interconnected. People, animals, our environment. When nature suffers, we suffer. And when nature flourishes, we all flourish. I do believe in the possibility of a world where we can live in harmony with nature, but only if every one of us does our part to make that world a reality. So that when you look back over your journey, your life, you can truly say, I did make a difference.
I absolutely love that video, not only because it shows us how we all need one another to survive on this planet that we call home, but also because the music is so beautiful and so relaxing. So I mentioned earlier that the core of Roots and Shoots involves 4 major steps. So now we're going to take some time to dive into each one. So the first step of Roots and Shoots is to get engaged and inspired. Ask yourself, who or what inspires me to be a leader and to take action to help people, animals, and the environment? I can think of tons of people in my life that inspire me every day, but today I'm going to talk about a few from our Youth Advisory Council. Their hard work and tireless dedication inspires me every day to be the best leader I can possibly be. In fact, they inspire me so much, I'm going to tell you about 4 of them. Hannah comes from the remote farming community of Tisdale, Saskatchewan, which only has 3,200 people in it. She grew up on a small grain farm and spends tons of time outdoors. She's most inspired by moss and lichens, which are tiny little plant-like structures that make their homes on trees, rocks, and other forest surfaces. Chloe hails from Windsor, Ontario, and is currently studying wildlife biology and conservation at the University of Guelph. She also really enjoys spending her spare time outdoors, and she is a phenomenal bird watcher. She's also an incredible artist, and she's so good at drawing, and she loves to play video games as well. The third person I'm going to tell you about is Kristen. Kristen is from Markham, Ontario, and is now on her 2nd year of the council. She loves spending time outdoors as well, as you can see from her photo, which includes watching outdoor live theater, which I think is so unique and so incredible, and she really loves musicals. The last person from our Youth Advisory Council that I'll tell you about is Asala. Asala is from Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, and she is now studying at the University of British Columbia on Musqueam territory. She loves hiking, photography, and yoga, and has a passion to use her love of imagery and storytelling to educate others and inspire action. All of us are incredibly energized by emerging generations and their dedication to tackling some of planet Earth's biggest challenges. And we are so happy and so fortunate to have them on our Youth Advisory Council. And of course, Dr. Jane. Everyone knows the wonderful Dr. Jane Goodall. At the young age of 26, with no science or animal behavior training, Jane got the rare opportunity to study chimpanzees in what is now Gombe National Park in the East African country of Tanzania. Using patience and her own intuition, Jane discovered features about chimpanzees that in many ways changed our view of mankind and our connection to the animal world. Her remarkable findings led her to now speak at different events 300 days a year prior to the pandemic, discussing threats facing chimpanzees, species conservation, and reasons for hope that we will ultimately solve some of Earth's biggest problems. Now she's able to participate in events digitally, as we saw today, which has actually allowed her to broaden her reach and spread her message to more people around the world. The second step of Roots and Shoots is to observe the needs of your community to determine what issues you can tackle right at home. And you can do this in a number of different ways. This can be done by conducting a community walk in your neighborhood or using digital tools such as Google Maps or Google Earth to see where you can have an impact right at home. On the left, you'll see that you can conduct a digital community mapping exercise using those tools like Google Maps and like Google Earth, which is a safe way to explore your community during something like a COVID-19 lockdown that we're all very familiar with. Another really cool way to map your community is to use your community. You can grab sticks, twigs, leaves, and rocks and map your community right out on the ground in front of you. Ultimately, it's not about what you use to map your community, it's about what you find. And once you've had the chance to explore and learn more about your community, safely of course, you'll want to keep note of the things that inspired you to make a change. You can create a community scorecard like the one you see on the screen here, or you can discuss your findings with your friends and family and peers. And this will allow you to determine what you want to build your project on. It's a fantastic way also to spend some time outdoors, exploring your neighborhood safely with friends and family, and learning more about your neighborhoods and homes and communities. So now I'm going to take a moment to show you how some students in Hong Kong conducted their own community mapping exercise. This was done prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. So however you do your own exploring, you want to make sure you do it safely.
Find what was wrong with the neighborhood and to ask maybe how people felt about it.
Yeah.
We went to observe things in our community in Wanchai, and we also tried to interview some locals to try and to find out what was happening in our community and what we need to fix in our community.
Right now we're making a map. So where we're putting all the problems we found onto a Google map.
We can send it to people to let them know that this is where we found some problems, so maybe they could help fix these problems.
It was quite surprising because I actually know some of those things like that one where the sign was pointing the wrong way. Like I've gone up that road so many times and I've actually never seen it.
When you just look out the window, you never realize these small problems.
Yeah.
But once you actually are determined to do it and you just walk around, you can actually see that there are a lot of things that we can work on and fix.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So the key thing to remember here is that often we don't notice issues in our neighborhoods that we can have a positive change on until we actually go out and have a look, which is why the community mapping exercise is so important. And of course, at the Jane Goodall Institute of Canada, we do enjoy doing a little bit of mapping ourselves. So here's a quick snapshot of some of our Roots and Shoots projects in Canada over the last few years. And on each pin here that you can see on the screen includes a project description, some photos, some more information and details about what was achieved in each project. And this allows Roots and Shoots projects across the country to see what other youth are doing from coast to coast to coast and help inspire one another. So now it's step 3. This is the big step. You've taken all of your learnings and now you want to determine how you want to have a change by taking action with a community project. And you can do this in many different ways. This can include restoring your local community green spaces and natural areas. It can include planting a pollinator or medicine or sustainable food garden, or perhaps restoring a local park or watershed through planting trees or cleaning up. It can be educating those around you about local sustainability issues by talking to your friends and family and peers about the issue that you'd identified and teaching them about why it's important. You might also want to motivate your peers to reflect on or change the way that they can be more sustainable in ways that are accessible to them. And that can be by showing them ways that they can help fix that issue. And then, of course, Jane mentioned advocating by writing a letter to local legislators or just speaking with decision makers in your community to raise awareness about your cause. And so that can be bringing your problem to policymakers, government officials, business owners, and other decision makers to show why helping you implement your solution is so important. The opportunities here really are endless, and you can take your project in any direction that you'd like. So in order to get started, you'll want to plan ahead and reflect on some questions that you'll need to be successful. You can start with basic questions around you that you'd experienced and identified during your community mapping exercise and the problem that you'd like to tackle with your project. You should think about things like what or who is being impacted by the problem. Is it animals, people, or the environment, or perhaps it's a combination? And then you can determine what you'd like to do to help solve that issue. And you don't need to solve the whole issue right away either. Every individual action counts and matters when making a difference, no matter how big or small. Write a list of things you'll need to start your project. Do you need to do research with books or the internet? Are there experts that you can ask for help? What materials do you need? How long will your project last? And of course, there are always project coordinators around, like teachers and educators, to help support in designing your projects. And lastly, how will you know if you were successful? Perhaps you'll count the number of plants you were able to grow, the number of people you were able to talk to, the amount of litter you were able to pick up if you were cleaning up a local park or watershed, or did you just spend some time outdoors, which is just as successful? All of these are great ways to think about how amazingly successful your project can be. And so we have a bunch of resources as well that we encourage our Roots and Shoots projects to tap into. The first that I'll tell you about are our online curriculum guides on a number of different subjects. They are chock full of information, additional resources, and classroom activities, and they can all be found on our website, which is always being updated with new content for youth and educators to access. Some of our Roots and Shoots guides include Roots and Shoots at Home, our brand new biodiversity guide, invasive species, sustainable food, protecting our sacred water, and then our new guide that's coming soon, Indigenous Perspectives in Canada, which we are so excited about. And of course, our APE Fund community grants. Roots and Shoots projects are welcome to apply each year to receive funding for project activities. This year, our applications will open for the month of November from the 1st to the 30th. And then applications are reviewed over the winter break and funds are awarded in early 2022. Throughout the winter and spring, Roots and Shoots projects take place and wrap up before the summer holidays in June, at which point there's a year-end report due where you'll tell us about the activities that were accomplished and what was learned from the youth over the course of the project. The ultimate goal of Roots and Shoots is to learn more about how people, animals, and the environment are all connected, and that can be in the simplest, most basic way to as complex as you'd like to make it. And of course, Roots and Shoots is designed to show you how you can make a difference and be a force for change right at home. And of course, it's June now, you've done your Roots and Shoots project, and now it's time to celebrate what you were able to achieve. At JGI Canada, we measure impact by understanding what you were able to learn over the course of the project and how you were able to take action. We also measure your impact through the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as a guiding framework, But it's also good to do some self-reflection. Ask yourself things like, what did you learn and how did you take action on the issue that you'd identified? Did you learn more about the interconnectedness between animals, people, and the environment? Did you feel like you could continue making a difference after your project is complete? And most importantly, did you have fun? As you plan to celebrate your project, keep in mind that if you did receive an APE Fund grant, that you are able to put some of your funds towards your celebration as well to ensure it's as exciting as possible. And celebrating can look like a number of different things. It can include things like hosting gatherings or get-togethers in a safe manner that follows local guidelines, and can include things like pit cooks to pizza parties or a Zoom call with your classmates. We encourage you during this time to share stories and laughter and lessons learned along the way. And of course, we want you to continue taking action wherever you can, because as Dr. Jane has always said, every individual matters, every individual has a role to play, and every individual makes a difference every day. And so a quick recap on our Roots and Shoots 4 steps. In step 1, you're going to reflect on who or what inspires you to make change. In your step 2, you're going to observe and map out your community and determine where you can have an impact. Step 3, you're going to plan a project based on your findings and take action. And then in step 4, you're going to reflect on your achievements and celebrate the impact you were able to have. And so a very popular question that we get from a lot of youth is, what are some Roots and Shoots projects that are happening around Canada? So now I'm going to give you a sneak peek into some of our Roots and Shoots projects that wrapped up this year. So in Terrace Bay, Ontario, from Lake Superior High School, the outdoor environmental science class put their APE Fund community grant towards a project focus on engaging rural Northern Ontario students in decolonization activities at Pays Plat First Nation. The 3-day trip involved countless activities, such as contributing to a powwow revitalization project, canoeing, camping, sharing food, stories, and laughter, and participating in cultural learnings from elders on their traditional sacred grounds. And after a year and a half of online learning, the big takeaway is that students realize the beauty of community building and the power of building relationships. On the East Coast in New Brunswick, the 20th Moncton Girl Guides dedicated their Roots and Shoots project to learning more about birds and enriching the habitats of local species. After learning about different local bird species, their behaviors and habitat preferences, they got to work alongside the Kodiak Woodworking Guild to build a series of birdhouses of different sizes, shapes, and colors. They also learned where to place the birdhouses and how to care for them to ensure they'd be well loved by local birds for years to come. On the West Coast, the stewards of the Chianu Society created Indigenous plant nurseries and now tend to over 5,000 plants. Youth caring for the nurseries were able to engage in a number of ongoing activities and learning experiences. This included harvesting and drying lichens and rose hips and using them to make creams, oils, and other products. The students are beyond excited to continue caring for the nursery for the growing seasons to come. For those of you who love podcasts, Shake of the Establishment, a growing grassroots organization primarily in Southern Ontario, launched their first ever podcast known as Establish. The podcast connects their listeners to a series of experts and individuals with lived experiences working in all areas of climate justice. Their podcast is now widely available on common streaming platforms such as Spotify and Apple Music. And last but certainly not least, in Yellowknife, the Northwest Territories at Mildred Hall School, students got to work tending their on-site community garden, which has been largely volunteer run for the last 5 years. Now with students at the helm, they're gaining firsthand experience on what it means to connect with the food you grow and what's required to nurture a garden. And by working together throughout the year, students learned more about sustainable food systems and how they could collectively support one another and have a more positive impact on the world around them. And with that, I want to thank everyone so much for allowing myself and Dr. Jane to spend some time with you this morning or afternoon, wherever you're tuning in from. If you have any questions about our presentation this afternoon on Roots and Shoots, please get in touch with us. A gentle reminder that APE Fund applications open in less than 2 weeks on November 1st and will close on the 30th for those that are interested in applying. I hope you all have had a wonderful week of Take Me Outside Day events, And most importantly, continue to spend some time outdoors wherever you're able to learn, explore, and play in this beautiful country we call home. And of course, we encourage you to keep in touch with us on social media, wherever you can, to learn more about updates on our programming, projects, and incredible partners.